horses arrive at the airport, they will already have been checked out by their vet at home and had export papers issued, which are basically to certify that they haven't got any contagious or infectious diseases and that they are healthy to travel. So that's done before they fly, and then they come to the airport with those papers and their passports and all their baggage, including a sort of certain amount of baggage that goes on the flight and the extra baggage. And then at the airport, normally a shipping company that organises the travel is there, and they would then receive all the paperwork for the horses, organise which horses are going to fly in which stalls. And so sometimes there'll be horses that where you'd have two in a crate and sometimes it's three. So they would have done a sort of a loading list, and then they will organise which horses get loaded when. And so the grooms are normally with the horses, and the horses before they fly, they'll make sure they normally travel in boots and a tail guard and not bandages because they get tight on the legs during the flight. So, and they'll normally get the horses ready for the flight, and then the horses will be loaded into the pallets. And then once they're loaded into the pallets, the pallets are assembled and then they're taken to the plane, and the plane is then loaded normally via a scissor lift. And normally before they get on the plane, everything's weighed as well, so they know exactly what the loading of the plane is, and then they stack the pallets on the plane according to the weights and distribute them evenly, depending on how many horses they have and how many pallets they have on the plane. When you load the horses to start with, you need to make sure that they've got they're going to be in the right sort of clothing for the flight. So normally that's no rug, and their boots are on securely, their feet are taped to stop them rubbing their clenches or catching their shoes on anything, and they've got a tail guard on. Normally we don't put bandages on them, and so we make sure that's all done before they fly. We don't have a rug on them. Normally if they're on the plane they'd be too warm in a rug, so we normally take all the rugs off before we fly, because sometimes it's quite hard to get into the pallets to get the rugs off. And then we make sure that they've all got access to water the whole flight. So I would take water around them and give them a drink and make sure they've all got hay so they can eat on the flight. And then some of the longer flights, so to Rio, we were able to open up the pallets so that we could, instead of them standing with their head over the partition, we managed to change the pallet around so then we could open up the front so they could put the head on the floor, and we put their water down, the hay down, which means that they can get any mucus that accumulates in their lungs to drain, and it's much better for the airway if they can get their heads down rather than standing with their heads up for the flight. So that's quite a key thing for a long flight, but we do have to sort of re-engineer the stalls a bit to do that, which normally the flying grooms, who are the professional grooms, normally there's maybe two of those on a big flight, so they would come around and help you sort of rearrange the pallet. Well, I think it's just the two things. The acceleration, they try and accelerate less speedily, so they kind of try and so that they get less fast acceleration and also less fast deceleration and braking when they're landing. So when they land, they normally try and go on a runway where they've got a good length of runway, so they don't try and land on a short runway, so they've got plenty of time for the plane to decelerate, so they don't have to brake so hard, and they have a slightly gentler kind of landing on the way down. And the pilots do have to slightly override the plane's automatic kind of warning systems as to whether if they are or aren't landing in the correct protocol that they normally would land a passenger flight. But it's just basically to give the horses a slightly less, because when we're sitting on a flight we're expecting the landing, when they're on the flight they're not expecting the landing, so they try and do it as smoothly as possible. And normally they've just picked an airport with a long enough runway that can accommodate that kind of landing. Quarantine is normally, like, the country you're going to is concerned about you bringing diseases into the country. So the quarantine's it's set up for individuals depending on which country you're going to. So in America we normally go and they have to spend 2 days in quarantine while they get bloods from the horses, and they process those through the lab to check they're not carrying certain diseases, and they also keep them indoors in an area where insects can't get into, so they're worried about us bringing horses in with diseases that then you'll get midges or certain insects biting the horses and then carrying those out into the other population of horses. So for going to America it's a relatively short quarantine, but they are confined indoors for that period. So when we go into quarantine, it depends, like say at the World Games, how they'll set that up is that they'll allow access to maybe the people have come in on the flight, so if that was the vet, then the vet will be allowed access, and there may be 2 grooms, but not all the grooms will be allowed in quarantine. So then what would happen in the quarantine was the horses will get looked after, fed, watered, mucked out, and then we do a lot of walking with them. So when we went to the WEG, in the last WEG that was in American Kentucky, we spent probably 4 or 5 hours a day walking the horses while we were in quarantine, and we just walk round and round and round with them, so that maybe if you've got a couple of grooms and the vet or whoever's in there, they would basically just look after the horses during that time. And we also, obviously the important thing with horses is check their health after the flight, so we take the temperatures, check for any respiratory issues or anything like that, to signal. And our aim to go to a championship is to make sure we get those horses there in the best possible state to compete. So the last thing we want is a horse that's slightly picked up a bit of a respiratory infection on the flight, or travelled in a way that hasn't drunk or whatever. So we're very careful to make sure that the horses are hydrated and they have a good respiratory kind of health when we get there. And obviously the quarantine period is a good chance for us to really monitor them and check that there's anything that we need to kind of get on top of before it becomes a big issue.